Aloha, all you moneymakers out there. Thank you guys for joining our podcast. And we're super excited today because I'm going to share the bad with it. I'm going to share some of the 5 biggest mistakes I made in real estate and some of the things to look out for you. It's not all roses and cherries, whatever that saying is. Let's get into the dirty. So let's do it. Just before we get started, I'd love it if you guys could subscribe below, and that way we can reach more people and just help people make their money work for them in any different way we can. Thank you guys, and let's get started in today's content. So first, let's start off with some of the biggest mistakes we're talking about, but let's start off with the easy ones, kind of the no-brainers you would obviously guess, but we can kind of dive into them, of course. The first, actually, number one biggest mistake that new or old you've been in the business, the number one thing to be careful or look out for is your ARV, your projection of a property value, your after repair value if it's a fix and flip, your value if you're going to do a BRRRR and you're going to try and refinance it out, or if you're doing a huge multifamily deal and you want to evaluate the property to refinance out and take all your investors. So the biggest, most critical number is your ARV, your projection of what this property is worth. And sometimes you can be miscrewed and in not looking, you don't have enough data. Very common here in Hawaii that a property, big problem here in Hawaii is you'll be looking maybe, say, Manoa Valley, and the properties in that value of that area don't have good comps, and they don't have houses. We don't have track houses here in Hawaii, so the properties may not be like for like. And so now you're trying to compare properties of a stucco home, and you had this prefab home and this single wall construction, and you don't have enough data to really figure out a solid ARV evaluation of this property. And then you can get into looking at square footages that are not like for like. Or one time I had a realtor that sent me some ARVs of our property. We were going to do a flip, and our property was 2 houses back from the ocean, and that realtor sent me homes, and one of the comps that they sent me was a home on the ocean. Again, that realtor, it's not their money at stake. This is my money at stake. So that realtor didn't really look into it as much as I'm going to look into it. So that is a potential problem that you may be depending on a realtor for their own opinions. And if that, evaluation is wrong, the realtor says, oops, I'm sorry, but you as an investor, you have to eat that loss. You have to suck that money up. So, oops, I'm sorry doesn't cut it for me. It's your money at stake. So figuring out that ARV is really, really critical because it's your money at stake. It's not that realtor's money at stake to figure out the exact comps for you. It's not, anybody else's money. It's your money. It's your life. It's, these are big numbers we often deal with. So figuring out that ARV, after repair value, is super critical. We check everything. We fill our head with a ton of information. We'll get into another podcast with that later. But we want to be that experts in figuring out that ARV, because that mistake will cost you thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're off, and it doesn't go back to the realtor, they're not paying for that mistake, or whoever advised you on that valuation of that property. It comes down to you. And I do it. I do an ARV. I do a valuation of any property we're doing very in-depthly. I will, yes, ask for realtors for their opinions without giving them my opinion first. So I want to hear their feedback. Then I actually have a VA that evaluates the properties for us. They're going to send me all the data that I need so I can make a really educated evaluation. And then I'm diving into it. If we have one of our acquisition guys as well, he's looking at that deal. So once we get a deal locked up, we'll really dive in and make sure, what can we sell this project for? We'll go back and forth with agents. Or if it's we were just doing a large evaluation on the house. It was a $2.5 million house. Trying to project 6 to 9 months out, where will we be at? So now we're looking at comps we'll go look at even 2 to 3 year old comps. We'll look at square footages that people have used. You're really just trying to pull as much information in your head to make, an educated, risk assessment of this deal, because that ARV is going to dictate everything else. So your ARV will back down everything. Say that project is worth $2.5 million. What is your purchase price? You'll minus that out. What is your rehab budget? You'll minus that out. What is any holding costs and realtor cost? You minus all of that out, and then you're left with that profit. So if your ARV is wrong, all that everything else that you backed out will be really wrong. So your ARV is your end all be all number, and you have to be right on that number. That's what you're going to sell this house for. And if that changes, that can obviously lower your profits and cause a loss of this deal. So if you're trying to do a deal and it's really tight because your ARV, is off, or you're pushing an ARV, and I'm guilty sometimes too of it, is hoping for an ARV or trying to figure out something that's not there, for example. And this happens again when you don't have enough data. Maybe nothing has sold. It happened to us. We had a condo where nothing has sold in the building. Our oldest comparable comps were 2 years old, and there's nothing sold in that size range. It was like a penthouse, really big, beautiful. Then you're trying to analyze deals with per square footage and so forth. So that was my third flip ever, where I didn't have enough information to analyze a deal, and we jumped into it, and that one didn't work out too well. But you learn from your mistakes and you move forward. We're around 120 flips later, and we've been lucky enough to be all right on every deal. So you learn from these mistakes of analyzing a deal and not really having enough data to make an educated guess for yourself. And that's what it is. I am the expert in every neighborhood. Every deal I do, we know what's sold in that neighborhood, what's drawn, what's expired, what's listed down the street. That house is down the street, and he's got, this kind of walls and this kind of accents. You want to be that expert in that neighborhood that you're doing a project in when you're ultimately starting that project. It's your money at stake again. And if you're talking to a realtor, okay, hey, he's talking about that house down the street. Yeah, I know about that house. It sold for this and this, and you can now you just know what you're talking about. When you know what's going on in that neighborhood that you're doing a project. Again, it's your money. You want to be the expert of that neighborhood, of understanding that particular market more than everybody else, more than even your realtors. So. Really diving in and walking open listings if you have to, or doing tours. I do a lot. I just do everything online with computers now, so I'll look at pictures and so forth. We do it. We do a more scale side of the things, so we have to do things more online. But you do have to get that ARV, and I'm probably going to talk about that. That right away is the biggest mistakes to look out for, because that's where hundreds of thousands could be lost or made. If in the last 2 years we had a market that was really forgiving. So a lot of these new investors, flippers, anyone who started flipping since 2019 till 6 months ago, if you're following them and they've been flipping 2-3 years. They look successful because they've been in a market that was really forgiving. You could be over your rehab budgets, or you could have been off on your ARV, and they would have still made money. Prior to that, most investors that started in this business don't really last, because you really had to be on it. There was no forgiveness of this kind of market. We would sell a house and be happy to get asking, prior to this crazy market. Or we would have enough room or profit on a deal to cover our cushion in case a deal went bad. Or, now we have 18 flips going on, so we're cushioned enough to, forgo any kind of losses. But we have rentals and we have so much scale now at this point. And we hope we know what we're doing with ARVs at this point too. So when you're a newbie investor and you're just starting out, a lot of times you're riding off of this one deal making it, and it's not a forgiving business where sometimes those losses can be big number losses, double, triple digit type of losses, and God forbid, I don't want anyone to have that happen to them. Any new investor out there, I don't want that to happen to you. And that's why we're getting into it, is because I want everyone to succeed in this business and make money. So getting your ARV really, really dialed in and not being pushy about it. Actually, one of the kind of subtopics we talk about here of risk is not having your emotions drawn into the deal. I've had deals where just a deal just now, actually, we just passed on it. We had it in escrow. We were going to potentially close on it, but our numbers were too tight. On larger deals, when you're doing $2 million deals, your profits could be great or could be very small. They change very, very fast with hold times and so forth. And if I had emotion involved in it, I loved the house. It was actually on Enchanted Lakes. It was on the water, had this pool. It was a single level house. I love them. The layout was super fun layout, fun designing type of project. End of the cul-de-sac. I would have lived in the house. That's why, if I let my emotions suck me into that deal, then, I could potentially lose a lot of money. In reality of the deal only had a potential profit of $200,000 or a loss of $80,000 within 3 to 6 months span. That's how much difference it was. So these larger deals, this was a ARV of 2.6 million, 2.5 million, excuse me. If we were off on these numbers and the market where it's at, we have a potential to lose 80 grand. And we look at the best possible scenarios to our worst possible scenarios. And our profit of these deals is our risk factor. So we don't want to go into a deal of that size with, it was like a $180,000 profit, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy to make that kind of money. But that is my risk factor of that deal. And if that property, it was carrying about 20 grand a month, 25,000 I think a month. It was a carrying cost. So if that property carried that extra 6 to 8 months, that's a huge blow into your profit. And at that same time, you're also doing drops in prices if you couldn't sell that property. So you're factoring a lot of these moving parts that is just very hard to predict. So you want to kind of look at your best case, of course, your worst case, and you're looking at your profits to use as your risk factor. Are you comfortable making that type of profit? And that's all stemmed off your ARV. And that's what make it or break people in this industry. Everyone looks great in the last 2 years. There's some great Instagram people out there that I follow, and they did great in the last 2 years. But you'll see where people are at in the next 2 years is kind of who you want to follow, or you want to follow people who've been doing this in the business for a long time. We've been in it now about 10 years now. I didn't get through the 2008 crash, but I've been doing it a while. I'm not saying I'm an expert, not saying I'm know anything. I just know what I know, and that's all I can say. I've been through a lot of deals and a lot of highs and lows in the industry, mostly highs. I'm very blessed, but understanding valuations is critical. It's absolutely critical. I would spend days, weeks, even months on deals. This particular deal we just had, we spent 3 weeks analyzing this deal, of back and forth, of pulling every data source we can and looking at the numbers. And it comes down to that, taking emotion out and just trusting the numbers and make your decision based upon numbers. I remember a few deals before that I really loved it. I was so in love. One of my first few deals, I was really in love with them because of locations, because of qualities, and I didn't really fall in love with the numbers. The numbers weren't great, and luckily we did those deals. But from my experience, you gotta trust numbers. It's not emotional business. You gotta take the numbers on paper and go with that. So that's the number one risk thing I could talk to you all day about. But the second kind of most important thing is rehab budgets. So rehab budgets, they're easy if you guys are in a smaller market. Like we just okayed a rehab budget in our Ohio deal we're doing. It's a $56,000 budget for the whole house and everything. And those smaller budgets, you have a little more flexibility in it. Normally you're off 56,000, could be 60,000. You should be making a lot more than that on the deal, so you can be a little off. But when you're doing these larger rehab budgets we do $800,000 budgets, those can be very easily get away from you fast sometimes, depending on how you're working with your contractor. So making sure your rehab budgets are on it, and not just the rehab, you're accounting for all the other expenses that you may have missed. And that's what happens a lot is, okay, you work with your contractor and he gave you a budget, but you didn't account for how much your appliances would have cost because you're paying for that, or the landscaping you forgot to do, or you found this extra item that the contractor is not going to do because you totally missed it, and you have a shitty contractor that's not going to cover it. So having a strong rehab budget and line items, and really walking the house and catching everything, and making sure you're thinking about every little thing that could happen in that house. Because often, and I'll tell you what, you're going to miss something. I miss something. There's something that's going to come up inside that wall, underneath that corner of that beam on the left side is rotten, and that's your whole support of your whole house. Or that corner of the house foundation is a little weird, a little bit, but you found out that's a huge foundational issue that you didn't project. Whatever you think will happen will eventually happen to you in this business, and that's just the name of the game. And that's why we have our contractors that we work with that are, they're not going to throw a huge number at us. Most of the time, they'll just cover it. It's part of their bid. They're understanding what they're getting into in a rehab. And you won't get this with some contractors. This is just one of the criteria we look for in a contractor that's going to handle this. And if it's a huge, huge thing outside of the scope of the work, maybe we'll negotiate just a material cost, and they'll handle the labor. Because we're giving a lot of business to these contractors. So if you're in a deal and, that happens to you, that should be something that you negotiated ahead of time with a contractor. And that's how you don't get these rehab budgets getting away from you. I have a contractor's license. A little kind of behind the scenes of what a contractor often does is very common in military jobs. They'll do this, is they'll come in very under budget, and they'll come in just at cost or break even to that particular job to win a job, and they'll use change orders to really make money off that job, and they'll charge a lot more on change orders, which often will happen on pretty much every construction job there is. There's always something that comes up, especially the big military ones. So some contractors play that game and look for change orders. Not all. I'm just telling you some of the tricks of the trade. Or some contractors will won't be a savvy contractor, and they'll miss some of those items, and they're kind of out to, I don't say out to get you, but they got to cover their costs sometimes. They weren't smart enough to cover their costs for that bid, and maybe that's why you had such a low bid, because they didn't know about they didn't find it the foundational issue or the corner issue. And then the other thing is working with these contractors and know how to remedy some of these large scale problems that could cost a lot, and know what's the cost efficient way to fix it compared to doing a large scale cost effective way. There's a lot of cost effective ways to fix things that are safe and legal and to code that you can do. But luckily we've been through a lot of them, so we know how to navigate those issues. And believe me, those issues are pretty huge and cost a lot. And when you have a flip going on or any kind of project going on, you have a budget to stick to, and that's the hardest part of the job sometimes, trying to stick to that budget, but yet you want to do everything perfect. I mean, we want to have the best product, we want to have the most perfect house, and we want to cover every inch of that with just beauty and accent walls and lighting under cabinets and lighting under toe kicks and track lighting and every beautiful thing you can think of. We'd love to do, tearing out slabs and roofs and foundations, but we have a budget, so you have to make a decision. Is that roof 5 years old, 10 years old? Can you leave that roof alone? Is that side of the house okay? Can you just leave it alone? So yes, you want to do everything perfectly, but you have a budget, and that's the hardest part of it all. And it can go south really fast. We did a project in Lumahai where it's just my team running. I have some full-time guys that work for me, and I made the mistake of trying to do this $3 million house, and we tried to just make it too beautiful in a sense, and it cost us. We kept on, I was just really into this project at Lumahai, which turned out beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it cost me over, I think, $200,000 over our budget because we wanted to do just this beautiful quality type of home with a lot of high-end stuff that we've never even done before. These $18,000 metal railings and beautiful lava tile and all this custom doors and custom lighting and custom everything, which is great, and the guys can do it, but then it costs us more money because we made this quality product. That house would have sold and made a lot of money, but we actually came in on the market right when COVID hit. And luckily we got out of that house and we made like $100,000 on this mega house. But, we would have made a lot more if we came out on the market, definitely. But we had enough cushion. Back to the ARV, we had a potential $600,000 profit on this potential house, and we only ended up making $100,000. But we covered that by having enough cushion on the start of the project and enough cushion, on our ARV to really, be able to make well on that project. And luckily, we made something. We came onto the market when actually a month, 2 weeks, I think, before COVID was hitting. And we had huge buyers lined up, and then people couldn't fly in. And we got an offer pretty fast there, and it was a lot lower than we wanted, and we just took it and got off the project. It's funny now, that house we sold for $3.2 million. And I just got a Zillow Zestimate update just the other day. It was like $4.4 million within, I think, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we sold that house. And the Zestimate now is $1 million more. So if I would have held that home for, another year, we probably would have made another $1 million. So it's always in hindsight you can say that kind of stuff, but you never know what's going to happen. COVID might happen. The third huge mistake to look out for is working with poor contractors. We just kind of touched on that. Everyone is a great person out there, and everyone are great people, and I'm sure everyone means well. But often you'll find a contractor that maybe is, a lot of times what they happen, they're paying Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. So they'll look for your job to help offset their other jobs. They're trying to do too many jobs. They may talk the talk a lot oftentimes, and this is very common. They'll start strong on your job, and they'll be there strong at the start, and then midway through the jobs, they're on to their other projects and forgot about you, or they're sick, or their dog is sick, or their mom is sick, and they're, that. He may be a great contractor and may know his stuff, but if he doesn't have a great team, a crew, or a great leadership role behind him, then that's what happens a lot. If they're not great leaders. A great story is a plumber. A plumber is a great plumber, and he wants to be a plumber. He's working well for somebody else, and he's great at being a plumber. But then he gets so much work, he often goes to make his own business. And now he's not just a plumber, he's a business owner, and he's trying to do all these jobs, but he doesn't know how to run a business of, paying invoices and paying, all the employees, tracking cost, managing his books, and running a business, that all the things that take. And then that's what happens to construction guys often, is they're great at their job of the trade, but they're maybe not great at running a business. And running a business, it's another skill set on its own, and not everyone is trained or cut out for that business. It's totally two different skill sets, very different skill sets, and that's what you're dealing with in contractors often. Is they may not be ready for that skill set to run a business. They may be a great tradesman and so forth, And that's what happens. And then you end up paying for that. And it's happened to us. We've had I had a local contractor guy. He was doing it. He was doing our work, blah, blah, blah. Christmas came along. Actually, Merry Christmas, everybody out there. Christmas came along, and he asked to get paid ahead of time, for Christmas. And I didn't catch it, but I paid him $14,000 ahead of time before Christmas. He had these large payments set up on his deal, and he was going to come back. Christmas came, and I had never seen the guy again. And he didn't answer his phone, and I didn't get a hold of his son. I tried to get a hold of his son, and he stopped showing up, took the money and ran. And it was my fault. I paid him ahead of time, Christmas, and gave me the sad story of his family. And luckily I was able to find a new contractor to come in and finish the job, and we were able to get out and make money on that deal. But it did cost us more in that rehab because ultimately I paid that guy ahead of time. And everything's a blessing in disguise. His work wasn't quality work, and so forth. A little side hack, if you can. I love foreign workers. So if you have any foreign workers, I hate to say it, but they work hard. They value good relationships. They value work. And they've always been the best guys I work with. They want to work Saturday and Sunday. They want to get the job done fast as they can, because they know they can do more work that way instead of trying to do too much at once. It's just the way our society is. People have really strong work ethics when they come in from overseas, and they just want to work and they want to make money. I have a lot of my Filipino contractors. They're sending their money back to the Philippines. They're not even taking their money, and because they just want to work hard and they want to work. I don't even have to ask them to work on the weekends. I have to actually tell them not to work sometimes, honestly. We have Chinese guys too that work for us, and they're very, very quick. Obviously they put a lot of guys on the job. Every trade, there's all kinds. You hear the stereotypes, and it's kind of true. The Mexican guys, they can do everything. They want to work hard. You have the Italians who are great at countertops and great quality work. I've never found a Japanese guy, but the Japanese guys are very skilled, very technical. Chinese are fast. Filipino guys can do everything. And what would you guys tell me? What do you think about the American worker? What do you think about our society right now, an American worker? We can get into it right now, but it's, distinct stereotypical, and that stereotypical normally is pretty true. Obviously there is nuances and one-off, and there's great guys in every place in the world, including America, of course. It's just finding that right person for you. And then, okay, we're investors, contractors, have a lifespan. Often what we do, we create this machine, this animal. I have my contractor right now. He's done 20 plus homes now with me, and now he's got a big company, big office. He's got a staff, and he's growing because we created this machine, and he outgrows us. We can't keep affording to pay his whole overhead as it gets larger. And they have a lifespan of 2-3 years most of the time. And we have to constantly keep evolving and finding, new ones, because it's a love-hate business. I love working with them, but we do want to keep our costs down and so forth. And they want to have their prices up high. So it's, a touchy kind of relationships, of course. So in the next part of it, let's talk about the two bigger mistakes that you really need to watch out for. These are more high-level kind of things that more when you're scaling. And one of them is your rehab funds or your rehab budgets, your holding costs. So when you start scaling, a huge concern or thing to watch out for, and this is just through my own mistakes, learning it the hard way myself. When you start scaling, and say we're doing 18 projects at a time, we'll keep it easy. Say we're doing 15 projects at a time, and you got these rehab budgets. Say you got $100,000 on rehab budgets for 15 projects. We only used to get enough money. We would round up and get enough investor money, just enough to cover the job, our hard money lender would cover our rehab costs. They would cover the 100 grand. That was part of the hard money cost. They would tell us, we're covering your hard money, we're covering your rehab costs. The hard money lenders would tell us. So they're covering the 100 grand, and they're covering all that 100 grand times 15, right? So they're covering that. But they would only give us our rehab funds as we did work. We do what's called draws. So we would have to work hard at the beginning of the jobs and then ask for money. So you would work hard and then ask for money. So how do you do all that work at the beginning? You have to cover that cost. And often at the beginning of a rehab or a job, you are putting upfront that cost. So you are buying the materials, you're paying the contractors to start before you even got any of those draws. And you are now having to put up that money to get that job going. And often at the beginning of jobs, it doesn't look like much work is being done, but a lot of money is normally dished out. So it never looks like much is done, but a lot of money is normally dished out at the beginning to start jobs. And you now have to dish out, say, 30 grand of that job, a third of that job, before you can ask for your draw. Times 30 grand times 15 project, that's a lot of money that you had to dish out and that you may have not allocated for. You didn't raise that capital. So you get very tight, your bank accounts look very tight, you're on slim pickings. So that was a huge thing if anyone's trying to scale from 2 to 3 and up, is to make sure we now get enough money involved in that deal, set up in its own bank account, set up its own fund to run that deal to cover that extra rehab cost. Even though we have 100%, 100,000 in the rehab budget, we still get a third of that rehab cost on top of it to make sure that that deal is funded well enough. And the way to think of it is, so what, you raise an extra 20 grand or 30 grand for that deal, it may cost you a couple grand for that money, but it'll let you, you don't have to, what if you don't use the money? That's fine. You don't use the money, you pay it back. But it'll let you, sleep at night and let you be more comfortable to help you scale. And it's really great to have. And also, it's also accounting for another big thing to look out for is your holding time. So on these jobs, your holding time can change from 9 months to a year to 15 months, and there is holding costs involved in especially large scale projects like ours. Often you're paying 5 to 10 to 15,000 a month in mortgages. And if that job went an extra 6 months, that's the holding time definitely changes real fast. And if you're not accounting for that holding time money, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So having the extra funds available to cover all these extra costs, and if you don't use the money, it's fine, but it just helps you to help you scale every job. And we have 15, probably 20. We have 15 something bank accounts. We set up multiple different ways of tracking our jobs, of course, but also multiple different bank accounts to help just track all of this that we're talking about. It's very, very important to really understand that and to get ready for those draws. A little hack on the side note: your rehab budgets that you're giving to your hard money lenders, you do what's called, you front load it. And I learned this from a hard money lender. You often will front load it instead of. We used to be very honest with our rehab budget, and this is what it really, really costs. But then again, we're doing a lot of work up front, and you want to get your money till like third way or halfway through the job when you start actually catching up to the money you put in. So you can front load it. You can say items that are at the beginning, like demo, permits, windows, any upfront item framing. These will be your bigger dollar value items. You can't do more than 10% of your rehab budget, but you can front load your rehab budgets to help you get draws faster, help you get your money faster. You still have the same rehab budget of 100 grand, but you're just putting those items that making those items cost more up front to help you get your draws quicker. Front loading, it's very common in industry. It's not really shared about on it too much. It's more of a high level thing, but now you guys know. That is really the biggest kind of things to be careful of or help you scale is to understand that. And if you don't, understand all that, that's fine. Message me. I'll talk to you more about it. But some other things to one of the last items too is not to overdo your rehab, and manipulating the cost is two big things. So not to overdo your rehab sometimes is a problem. It is a fine line depending on where that project is, or the location, that community, to not overdo the rehab. Sometimes we spend too much money on an area or rehab that didn't need it. So understanding that is another mistake, and that's still a hard one to do or figure out. We want to do everything nice, but that area, neighborhood doesn't need that kind of, quality of material. And then the biggest mistake that I think I'm guilty of sometimes is not taking enough action. There's always more time of the day. There's always something you can be doing. You may be guilty of using your time wrong, and I'm guilty too. Is your time worth it going to Home Depot and picking up material and taking it to the job, or is your time worth it, driving around filming, TikTok videos? What is your time valued at? I still do love doing the yards, and I love laying grass. I'm an outside guy. I love the yard layouts. I love the yard design. I've gotten in there still today. I still will jump in for an hour or two and lay the grass and help with the layout of the yard. Or I used to carry tools in my truck all the time. I have construction knowledge, and my dad's a good MacGyver handyman kind of guy, and he taught me that kind of through my life, and I love jumping in there and doing construction. But is that the best use of my time? Doing the yard, I can have a guy doing the yard for $15 an hour. Is my time best valued at that, or is it out, making more relationships, finding more deals, finding more investors? What is the best use of my time? Or is it even better use to find bigger deals? So time management is a huge part of it all. And is that the best, not taking action properly of your time, not using your time properly? So you guys, I'm sure you can think about your day right now. Did you use your time effectively throughout that whole day? Did you really do it? And all of us will say no matter where you are. If you're a billionaire, I'm sure you can use your time to do more, be different, or do other better things of your time. It's always easy to look back, of course. So when you look back and you think that, hey, I could have done better time doing this and this and that, what would be the next kind of best use of your time? So that's the biggest thing. And that goes into taking action and all of that side of the business, which, we can all take more action. But that's it for the risk part of it all, mistakes part of it all. So don't make mistakes. You're going to make them. Hopefully learn from mine. I made 100 other mistakes that I can go into you guys about, but these are the big ones to look out for. A lot of little mistakes always to look out for, of not, doing proper inspections, not knowing your numbers, not figuring out your market, not knowing your buy box, not analyzing a rental properly, not looking out for the worst case scenarios. So do all those other assessments, be really risk averse, and that'll protect you in the long run. Yeah. But so in the next segment, we have our investors or people who come in and ask questions, and we have a great question today. And I'll read you this question, and it's a long one, but you guys will appreciate it because I think you're all in the same shoe, a lot of you. Hi, I'm reaching out to find any advice on how to purchase my first multifamily. I am struggling to get my credit together, but I qualify for a VA loan as of July as a veteran. I'm currently making about $60,000 per year, fresh out of college, and double once I done with my grad program. Any tips or tricks that I can start putting into work to purchase my first property before 2023 is over? And that's from Zea, Z-A-E. Sorry for pronouncing your name. That's great. I really admire you on taking that goal to get into multifamily. It is the new hot, sexy thing right now. That may be hard. You can find some easier, smaller multifamily, maybe some little fiveplexes in the mainland. If you're in Hawaii, you probably not a good market to jump into it just because the price points are a lot more. One, you won't qualify with $60,000 a year. They're going to want to see a bank account, a healthy bank account. So you're going to have to get creative, and you're going to have to bring KPs in. I hope you understand all that is, but we'll get into it. If you're going to try and get into multifamily and you don't have enough in your bank account, you're going to have to be a KP. You're going to have to bring a KP in. You're going to have to possibly syndicate this deal, so the banks are not going to want to look at you too much. If you probably can find a multifamily deal under $1 million, you probably at $60,000 per year, just on the top of my head, they're gonna want to see some healthy numbers in bank accounts, and you don't just get to buy a multifamily house, property, unless the banks deem you can afford it. So you'll have to bring people involved. You'll have to partner with somebody to make that work. You can do some DSCR type loans to help you get it as a debt to service ratio loan, but they're gonna want to see you got money in the bank to buy the damn deal. So you're gonna need that. So you'll have to bring some investors in. So understand how to analyze a multifamily, understand cap rates and NOIs and all that side of business. And multifamilies are not for the beginner, I would say. I mean, they look easy on paper, but you definitely need to understand that industry, because rehabs are very bigger. Rehabbing these type of properties are very intensely. Finding a good property management is very important. There's a reason why these old timers, or a lot of people sell these off, because they're not easy to manage. They are very time consuming, and most it can be losses a lot of times. We are looking at a 10 unit right now that cash flows, it could be good, but if you have a roof that one problem can really mess up that whole cash flow of that deal. I would suggest to start with just a single family home. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Something easy. Buy your own first property. Definitely would be the better way to start, in just my opinion. But if you want to dive all in there, find a deal is the hardest part of it. So find that deal is going to be the hardest part of it. And then I would say partner with somebody like me, or somebody who's done deals before, who has, one, they have a good track record to qualify for the loan for working with the banks. That's going to be a huge thing, especially in the market in 2023. Lenders are very on the fence. Even though they're doing a lot of less loans, they're very on the fence to loan. So they're going to want some Class A investors. They're going to want some strong liquidity in your accounts. They're going to want some security that, you know what the hell you're doing. And you're going to have to prove that to them. And if you haven't, if you don't even own your own personal house, or let alone any other like for multifamily properties, they probably won't lend to you. They're going to look at that. They're going to want to see maybe that you own. This happened in our Janesville property. We have to show that we've owned another like for like property, another strip mall, another space. So you're going to make sure the lender, who are kind of on the fence right now, you're going to want to make sure that you can buy this property. So find a deal, then find somebody to work with. It'd be the best thing to do. If you haven't even gotten your own property or personal house, I would say start there. Start with that. Best way to start. You can do a burst strategy. You can refinance to take your money back out. You can do HELOCs to take your money back out. Or get a little 4-unit, do a house hack. I'd probably say it would be your best place with only $60,000 a year, fresh out of college. Do you have the time to run a multifamily? It's not like I think people make it seem like it's just like, oh, you just like do 1 hour of work a week. No, it takes a lot of work, a full-time job to run these kind of things. It's not a fly-by-night kind of thing, or you get into trouble. But there is chance it will. There's always that one case, that one person, that one time. So maybe you get lucky. But I would say with the house hack would be best thing to start. Go buy a 4 to maybe 6 unit cheaper thing in a cheaper market, or a smaller little rental unit. Start with that. Get an understanding of it all. Last section is our deal of the week, and we're still trying to close out our Janesville property. We're so close to closing that out. I think we just got fully funded for that thing. One more investor's coming in right now. Now we're just, again, we're talking about earlier, getting our lenders to close. Our lenders are so finicky right now. It's very hard because of the market, and lenders in general are very hard. It's not their fault. It's the underwriters and the banks are tightening up. So we're trying to close our Janesville property out, get that closed. So we're super excited to finally get that closed, so close, and then on to the next one. I keep on looking at these other deals that come in, but I really just trying to close Janesville. It's our big one. It's a $5.8 million property. So, any smaller type investors are great. We're happy to bring you guys on and be part of the deal. I think we're pretty close to closing. If not, we might be $100,000 shy or something like that. But if you're interested in that property, or we have some smaller properties, our small ones get closed pretty fast. But if you're interested in investing, of course, just message me. And again, the last part, message me, follow me on all that great stuff. It's Indar Hawaii everywhere. INDAR Hawaii, HAWAII, Insta, social, TikTok, LinkedIn. We're on it all. And message me on there, and Instagram, DM me, and we can talk story. Even if you don't invest with us, or if you don't, whatever, buy a property, just message me. I'll point you in the right direction. I'm a wealth of free knowledge for you. So, I'll do my best to answer you. Hopefully, keep your questions and, great, amicable, I guess you can say. Some of those questions can be a little personal, and I'm not going to share, certain private information with you guys, as I've been seeing some of those questions. But just ask me, and I'll do my best to answer. So, Indar Hawaii, thank you guys so much for following, and thank you guys, and have a Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had an amazing Christmas, and get ready for 2023. Think positively about the year. Embrace the suck is what I want to leave you guys with. Embrace the suck. Look forward to the challenges in life. So, aloha, guys. Have a great year. Aloha.